Hello, everyone. It's Sports Week. Once again, the COVID-19 edition of Sports Week. From the kitchen, it's Foxy. And like we promised you last week, we rounded him up again. You should have heard all the compliments we got of having this guy on. It's Whitey, Jeff White, from his home kitchen again. Whitey, good to see you. Thanks for coming back. Like, we just ran out of time.
I had a great time last week. So much fun, and we got talking, and not enough names came up, and maybe a few should have been left out that did come up, but it's great to reminisce and talk about some of the great people and players in our lives in football Burlington, for sure.
That's for sure. So let's get into that again, like your Central days with the football and all that, and how that came to be, and how much important it was to you. I even want to know the difference, because you're a teacher coach now, the difference between football and high school sports then and now. But let's talk about your Central football days first and your Stampeder days.
Sure. I mean, I started playing in grade 9, and I went out to play, and I got cut from the team. I came home, and my dad said, "What happened?" You know, I'd been talking about football all summer. A friend of mine had played, Mike Capiello had played for the Stampeders, or the Vikings back then, excuse me. So I went to Central. I was so excited to try out, and 6 practices in, they call the names out, and these 6 guys who we didn't call, you know, I was one of them, stay right here. And so I had to go home and tell my dad that, you know, what happened at practice. Tonight was a different one. I was so scared. And I said, I didn't make it. And he said, "What you going to do about it?" And I said, in my mind, I was thinking, you know, I don't know, hang around the arcade. I don't know what I was thinking, you know. And he said, "No, you're going to go back out after school every night, and you're going to run sprints and do push-ups and get ready and show them that you're committed." And I was like, "Right." He said, "Oh, I'll be there." And my dad was there the next night, left work early, sitting in the stands, and I had to go do that in front of, you know, it was very embarrassing. He had me doing long jump. I don't know why, but I was doing long jump, push-ups, sit-ups, and sprints and running around the trail. It was embarrassing. And that went on for about 10 days. My dad left work early. And one day I was walking through the gym, and Coach Rod Frith came up and said, put his hand up. And I thought, he's feeling sorry for me. He's going to say, "You don't have to do this anymore." He said, "We had 4 injuries on Friday. A couple guys quit. Go upstairs and get your pads."
Wow.
And that was the start of my football career. And I took it. I put the pads on wrong. I put the girdle on backwards. I had the tailbone in the front. But I started football, and I fell in love with it. I went on to be a kicker, and immediately got in several other positions. I fell in love with the game and the coaches and the camaraderie, and it was fantastic.
That's awesome. So
grade 9.
The other thing too, you guys put Central back on the map because it had kind of dipped down a little bit, and you guys brought it up. You had a good group, good core, didn't you?
We had a good core, and we were actually, in my grade 12 year, we were all playing for the rep team, for the Stampeders, which, you know, you and I crossed paths there one of the many times that we did. And when the rep team said it wasn't going to run the next year, we were at Central with, you know, a handful of players. And I said, you know, why don't we see if we can get some other guys to come here that we played with? So we recruited Stevie Butt from Nelson, and Sean Hannaford was at Pearson. And we talked Andrew Carmichael into coming out of retirement. And then with the guys that we did have, went after some hockey guys, we scrapped together 30 guys. That was, you know, a fantastic team. The whole league was great that year. All the Burlington teams were good. Even Elgin was good that year. So,
right.
Of course, we had Bob McDonald, which was our linchpin. And then he got injured in the first play of the first game and missed the whole season. But we still had a great year. Great battles against MM Robinson. We played you guys 2 times in the regular season, and you beat us in the playoffs. And it was you stopped us on the 2-yard line. It was life-changing. But again, great relationships and coaches, and I played with some great guys there at Central. So I'm very lucky. It was a great time to be in high school, and Central was a great school.
And we were scared to death because that game was at Central, because you guys handled us in the regular season. So the game was at Central too. And I remember one of the big plays of the game, I completed one of my few passes of the year, but literally closed my eyes and threw it as far as I could. And as you would know, you have some guy, Tony Roberts was the guy. He just made me look good by running under it and catching it. And it went for a big play, which you guys, the reason why you couldn't defend it was because you didn't expect me to throw it. I was more deceiving, like handing the ball off, right?
Well, I think one of the things on our team was we cared about one thing only, it seemed, that was playing defense and smacking guys. Like it was all we ever talked about. We never, I don't think we practiced offense too many times, but the big thing on our defense was the run. We never thought about defending the pass. So whenever we got passed on it, it was it didn't go well for us, unfortunately. But I don't think anybody ran on us. We played Aldershot, and they didn't get a first down.
Right. Well, here you go.
So we had a
4
great
years to figure that out.
Okay. We had Mike. Sorry, go ahead.
Let's talk about the junior Ticats, like the Burlington Braves junior Ticats, because that was back in the heyday of that franchise as well when you were playing.
Yeah. Well, the Braves were a strong team for years, and Doug Trimble was the coach. And then the junior Ticats had an arrangement with the Hamilton Ticats for the name, and then also all kinds of things. We had their players at our practices. We had shared coaching. We got to practice over at Ivor Wynn. So I don't know how they skipped over the Hurricanes from Hamilton and took the Braves over. But for about a 4-year run, the Braves became the junior Ticats. And we had the cat's meow of everything. I mean, from Gatorade at the games, and guys were coming from Welland to play. We had 110 guys in camp when I got there. And, wow. The thing Doug Trimble did that was very different was we had a 10-game season, and you could try out any time. So we were 9-0, and we had guys trying out and sometimes beating out starters on a team that was 9-0. So that had some good effects, and it had some bad ones, but you couldn't miss a practice or you weren't going to, make the dress roster. So it was just like the pros or like a big college university. We had 110 guys and, 40 got uniforms. You'd be looking for your name. And, we had Lee Knight and Orville Dixon and Bruce Dixon and, just 9 guys from that team made the CFL. Oh,
unreal. Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable, right? Like Derek Noble and there was another 9 guys that should have, right. So it was very highly competitive, and it was very fast. I remember how fast the practices were, and coming from Central, I was like, what have I gotten myself into? But it was a great run and met lifelong friends.
One of the things that we've been successful at is plagiarism over the years. If we see something we like, we copy it. And that's kind of how, like, people give Bubba and I a lot of credit for elevating the high school football, especially, but high school sports. We had about 10 years where it was the bomb. Like, we couldn't go to the mall without people stopping us and stuff like that. And you mentioned it once, and to me, you sent me a note once too, like, being mentioned on the show was special.
Oh boy. Well, you did a show with the junior Ticats. We had the big Friday Night Lights battle with the Hamilton Hurricanes versus the Burlington Junior Ticats, traditionally known as the Battle of the Bay. Right. And they played the Braves for years. And we came on your show. It was Coach Griffin and Randy Hoffner came on, and Coach Trimble said, I'm not going on that show. So I brought Paul Kranix with me, 6'4", 290, and it got heated. And at the end of the show, Randy and I went after each other on your show. And I wanted to knock his lights out. He wanted to knock my lights out. I get to practice the next night, and Coach Trimble calls me in the office, and I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "I got a fax here from the league. You're suspended." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" A day or two later or something. He's like, "Did you go on television and do all these things?" And I said, "I did." He said, "You're out." So this whole thing went down. Anyway, we ended up getting back into that game. But that game came up, and I'm telling you what, both teams wanted to. It just added to the fire, right? And the stands were full, and people wanted to see White versus Hoffner. I was on offense, he was on defense, and I remember we were punting, and he was back to receive the punt with another guy. We punted, and I didn't wait a second. I just went after Randy. The ball didn't even go to him, and he just ran at me, and the two of us just on Friday Night Lights, and we just. I had him by 70 pounds, but he could hit, man. And I tell you what, I still feel it today.
Randy was born to be a football player.
Oh, yeah.
Really, his whole family, we mentioned it last week about his family is a football family, but Randy Hoffner was just born to be hit and give out a hit.
He played both ways. When we played Stampeders, he was the running back. We went to Ottawa, and he rushed for 175 yards. He never had a gain over 5 yards. And he fought for every one of those yards. And I'll tell you what, just his heart alone fueled us in that game. And he had 42 carries. I mean, that's unbelievable, right? 42 carries against one of the hardest hitting teams ever, the Ottawa Dukes. But right. Randy was a fantastic football player and just a true, I think even a throwback then to the 50s, a grinder. Randy couldn't sit in a hurdle or stretch. He couldn't stretch with the dam. He couldn't lift the weight. He didn't have a muscle on him. I think he ran a 5'40", but the guy got to the ball. That's what he did. He had ball sense. And I've played with lots of guys. Mike Capiello was one of those guys. He couldn't bench press his shoulder pads, but he was the first guy in. He was knocking guys all over the place. Scott Auberton from the Junior Ticats, same thing. This guy, we called him Slobberton. He looked like a Barba Papa. This guy didn't have a muscle on him. He was killing guys. Some guys have that sense, and Randy was, the top guy, I think, for having that football power.
He would play with a leather helmet if we would have let him, right?
Well, I know one play he had his helmet knocked off as a running back, and he kept going. He actually put his head into a guy. The other guy had a helmet. Randy didn't. He had blood coming out of his face, and he was in the huddle. He didn't need to pick up his helmet. He's back in the huddle, huffing and puffing blood. I said, Randy, where's your helmet? It's still over there. The referee puts it on. That kind of example of toughness.
Yeah. Great memories.
Into your skin. You become tougher playing with Randy.
Right. That's true.
Or any of these guys that you play with that are super tough. Who's the toughest guy you ever played with, do you think, Steve?
I think it's Randy Hoffner. We had another kid named Wayne Yakishin, a running back at MM Robinson. The Yak Attack, we used to call it, and he was another tough guy too, sort of undersized at the time, right? But tough as nails. But Randy took the cake, took the cake for that. So I talked about plagiarism and copying and all that. And the show, how we got started, Foxy and Bubba, Dave Rashford, a guy who you and I know, and we'll get into your story about him present day. But Dave Rashford wrote for the Burlington Post at the time, and he's worn so many hats, and especially in media, gone on to basically almost run Sportsnet and everything like that. But Rash back then would write a column and cover high school football. And every Wednesday, I think it was, he would write in the Post who would win the games. He put spreads in and everything. And basically, Bubba and I just emulated that but put it onto TV. But Rash was doing the TV part of it as well. And he wanted to go away for March break. And he asked me to fill in. Well, I never gave back the seat. He basically went away for March break, came back and said, no, you did a good job. You just keep doing it. And he retired.
That's right. That's a great story.
That's how it started. And then next thing you know, Bubba comes along and we did our shtick. But it started with Rashford. Charlie Lemmix before that hosted the show, but Rashford did the Burlington Sports Report, like a 3-minute thing every week. Right. So I ended up filling in 1 week, never left, took over. Tom Mayonek was another guy who hosted it. And then boom, just kept doing it ever since to this day. But now you had like a big background with Rashford, but up until now, present day, tell everyone at home the story now.
Well, Dave coached me when I was 17 as a Stampeder, and was a great coach. And then saw him in sports and saw him at the Post, and he was covering us in high school and Junior Ticats. He wrote some really cool articles about our team and a couple lucky plays that I had. Dave did some nice articles for us, and then we sort of stayed in touch, whatnot, and lo and behold, 25 years later, I moved into my new house here up in beautiful the West Mountain, and I look in the backyard, and who was my house back onto? Dave Rashford. And he doesn't look one day older than he did when he was 19. He looks fantastic, and beautiful family, 2 beautiful daughters who babysit my 2 daughters. And it's just, that football connection just seems to swirl around and around and reconnect. And, so many great people and so many great examples of good people in the game of football, which is, it's, we see what's happening with the game itself these days, and it's struggling a little bit with the concussions and whatnot. There's a real other side of it that I think is, if it goes away, is going to be really missed by a lot of people, and that connection.
So did business toughen you up to be a teacher and a coach and football, or did football toughen you up to be a business person?
Well, I think my dad toughened me up with discipline and willpower and just get it done. I'm too short and I'm too slow, and I've got a high school education. So I had to fight every step of the way for all those things that you sort of listed there. And so hard work and discipline were the only things that were the strings that I could play on. And that led to lots of being lucky in a lot of places and good timing. So, that's what I tell my kids at school. There's no way around the hard work, but having the right positive attitude, the proper attitude, And you know, the old football adages our coaches would say to you and I, you get knocked down, you get back up. And I think when you're young, you believe that when you hear that from somebody that means something to you, whether it was your dad telling me or a coach of mine telling me, you know, get up. And then you learn that works. And then you just play that string. That's the string you have. And I wasn't a 90% student. I didn't run a 44.3 40. I'd play with what I had, play the hand I was dealt, but I worked hard. And I think that, you know, that's sort of the lesson I give the kids, and they get it.
One of the skills you have is being a good top-notch communicator. And I think some of the coaches you've had over the years have been good communicators as well. But you've used that skill to reach people. But you're also a good judge of people and what people need and are looking for and all that kind of thing. And like I see it in your girls, like your dad of the year, every year going, every day going, and that's positive too. But the one question I have for you is, because you've turned kids' lives around. You did it at Filthy McNasty's, where you've given people jobs, and you've also, in a good way, had expectations for them that they never had before, and that elevated them. And you do the same thing at Loyola. You've done the same thing. You've took a football program that didn't exist and you get it into like the playoffs and stuff. And so what do you get out of it?
Oh gosh, I think I get rewarded more than anybody out of all of it. And I don't mean getting a Teacher of the Year award. I mean, it's the one-on-one conversation from the parent at the end of the school year. It's, you know, a kid that I didn't even know I was getting to writing me a letter. You know, I have some of those letters down. I have one framed from a football player that was my third string football player that wrote me a letter that, you know, how I had basically saved his life. And I was like, what? And I couldn't believe it. And it's just by, you know, discipline, hard work, and seeing what people really are capable of, and just trying to pull that out of them, and whether that be capable of running a 4.3 40 or capable of running a 5.9 40. And yeah, but what's in it for me is just I don't know. I think that's not. I think I don't do it for what's in it for me, and I think that's what people see, and that lets them be a little bit more vulnerable to what I have to say, and they see that I'm also vulnerable, because I've had all these great things you've said about me. Thank you. There's a lot longer list in the failure column, and that's the lesson too. How many times did Babe Ruth strike out versus how many homers he hit? And that stuck with me. My dad used to say that, you know, but he never quit. So staying with it and showing that as an example, as our dads did, and so many great people that have been a part of my life. I think that people they believe in you, and you get it done.
It's certainly great to see, and you know, I really value our 40 years of friendship. And but I kept saying 30, but then I did the math, Whitey, and it's 40 years of friendship. And it's like crazy that we've known each other this long, and we're so alike in so many ways, and we're different in other ways too. But it makes us who we are in our friendship that much stronger in that. But I love seeing from a distance what you're doing there at Loyola, and just having the guts at your age to change career paths. Like, I look up to you in so many ways. So from me to you, thank you for that. And thank you for leading the way. And like that kid, you've saved kids' lives, but you've made so many lives different and better. And for that, you know, I'm grateful, and so many people are grateful. And that's what leads to awards like the Teacher of the Year and everything. And your acceptance speech was pretty good too.
Well, you know, the comedian, as people ask me all the time, you know, what are you? Because you're a teacher, you're this. Underneath it all, the bottom line is I'm a comedian and a cook. That's why I tell everybody I cook great food, and I'm funny, and that's served me pretty well. And you know, and coaching is the thing I've always done, whether I was training staff or football players or my own kids. It's just coaching, and I had lots of great examples, as you said earlier. What you guys did, the amazing things you did with your show, you sort of emulated Dave. I'm just emulating a lot of guys that came before me. So I hear that credit, and I really need to pass that on to the Bernie Cusses and the Doug Trimbles and the Charlie Whites and you know, the Ron Foxcrofts of the world, and even peers, and even the kids below me. I learn from my students every day. I go, oh my gosh, I got to stop thinking I knew what I was doing, because I didn't.
Yeah, for sure. So Whitey, you're actually in town too. You're still working you got another gig, don't you? Where can people come and see you?
I work at the Coop. It's called the Coop Wicked Chicken on Brant Street, and it's a chicken restaurant, but it's so much more than that. But The food at this place is so great. I walked in there, I ate there. The music was great. I said, I just want to be a part of this world. And I went to them and said, hey, you probably don't know who I am, but I used to be something in the restaurant business a couple centuries ago. And they took pity on me. And so they let me work the odd Monday night shift over there. And I absolutely love it. I get to be downtown Burlington where I grew up and see all kinds of people who come and see me, and old players and coaches and new people and families and kids of kids that I've grown up with. And so I'm really blessed to be at the Coop in Burlington. It's a great concept. And, please, if anybody's watching out there, if there's one or two people that drop by and see me any Monday night, to see you and say hi.
Well, from what we got, the feedback from last week's show, I think you'll see a few people rolling into the Coop looking for Whitey. So, hey,
Look,
I want to thank you again.
Okay.
This has been a great walk down memory lane. Even get to know you a little bit better than we did already. It was funny, like last year, when I saw you last year at the Tigers thing, when I walked in, I was away. I walk into a Tigers game and Scott Mitchell, the president of the team, comes over and just goes, Whitey ripped you at Hitchcock's roast last night. And I wasn't even there. He goes, it didn't matter. It's Whitey.
I don't think they knew what they hired when they brought me in for that. But, we had a lot of fun. And the Ticats are, as you know, they're a great organization and great community organization. And I can't say enough great things about them and football life. I've been very, very lucky. And I want to make one last comment, if I may. I didn't touch enough on what you and Bubba did with your show and creating that really almost an Americanized Friday Night Lights at Nelson Stadium when you got there. And the schools were into it because of what you did. People that didn't know football were into it. Some of the kids got there, their first taste was what's going on. And they'd be chanting Bubba or Foxy and making fun of you guys and yell. And you guys were so, like professionals, and you brought the whole thing to a new level. And that is still carried on. People still talk about that at coaches' meetings today. How do we get that back?
Mm-hmm. That would be great.
Powerful. It was so powerful. Everybody wanted to be a part of that show, be interviewed, be seen. Bubba's hardest hitters or whatever he had going on, and Foxy's finest. It was a great show. You guys were pros, and I don't think Burlington football would be where it is today without what you and Bubba did.
Well, we appreciate that, and it'll get back there with people like you at Loyola, keeping that program alive and doing well.